Marcus was driving home from his daughter's soccer game on I-95 when he saw the red and blue lights flashing behind him. His hand started to shake. He had no idea what to do once he was pulled over by the police in Florida. And that 10 seconds of panic led him to make 3 mistakes that turned a simple traffic stop into the worst night of his life. What most drivers don't realize is that one of the biggest traps happens before the officer ever reaches your window. And the last tip I'm going to share with you today is the one that could make or break your entire case if this stop ever ends up in front of a judge in a courtroom. The moment those lights come on, everything you do is being watched and potentially recorded. Make sure you pull over safely onto the right side of the road, turn off your engine, roll your windows down, and turn on that dome light if it's dark outside. Keep both hands on top of the steering wheel where the officer can clearly see them until they arrive at your window. Do not start reaching into your glove box, your center console, or in your back pocket until you have a conversation with the officer. Every movement you make is going to be documented in that officer's report. And reaching for something before you're asked to is the number one reason a simple stop escalates into something dangerous. When the officer asks you for your license, registration, and insurance, tell them exactly where you're reaching for each document before you do it. Say something like, "My license is in my wallet in my back pocket, officer. Can I please reach for it? My registration is in the glove box, officer. Can I reach for it?" Narrate every movement and ask for permission to move. This keeps the officer calm, it keeps you safe, and it creates a clear record of a cooperative stop. Unfortunately for Marcus, he didn't do any of this. He started fumbling through his glove box before the officer ever reached his window, and that movement alone escalated that entire encounter. In Florida, you are legally required to provide 3 things during a traffic stop: your driver's license, your vehicle insurance, and proof of insurance. That's it. You are not required to tell the officer where you're coming from, where you're going, whether you had anything to drink that night, or even what's in your back seat. Officers are trained to ask casual questions at the beginning of a traffic stop. Things like, "Where are you headed this evening? Have you had anything to drink?" Those are not friendly conversations. Every question, every answer you give becomes part of a police report. And those answers get used to build a case against you later. You can and should politely decline to answer those questions by saying something like, "I prefer not to answer questions, officers." It's not being rude. It's not suspicious. It's your constitutional right. Now, Marcus didn't invoke his constitutional rights. Marcus answered every question that officer asked him that night because he thought he was being cooperative. It cost him. His own words ended up in that arrest report and were read back to him in court later. Cooperation means providing what you're legally required to provide. It does not mean volunteering evidence that can be used against you later in court. If an officer asks to search your vehicle, you have the absolute right to say no. In Florida, police can only search your car if they have your consent, they have probable cause of a crime, they have a warrant signed by a judge, or if they have an exception to the warrant requirement. Pay attention to the word ask. If they're asking for your permission, that usually means that they don't have a legal right to search without it. A calm, clear statement of, "I do not consent to a search of my vehicle," is one of the most powerful things that you can say during a traffic stop. If they search your car anyways, after you refuse consent, that becomes an issue that I can challenge in court after they found what they found. But if you give them consent, if you say yes, you've given up that protection entirely. I've worked on cases where the entire outcome hinged on whether or not the driver said yes or no when asked if their car could be searched. One client said yes because the officer phrased it as, "You don't mind if I take a quick look, right?" They purposely frame it that way. They make it sound like a no would be confrontational. It isn't. It's constitutional. You are exercising a constitutional right. And if you're a passenger in that car during that stop, the rules change in ways most people never expect. We cover exactly what police do to get passengers to give up their rights in another video. Have you ever been in a situation where an officer asked to search your car? Tell me what happened in the comments. You guys might be surprised how common it happens. If you believe an officer stopped you improperly, if you think the officer is handling the situation wrong, if you think your rights are being violated, the side of the road is not where you're going to win that fight. With me in the courtroom is. Arguing, raising your voice, or physically pulling away, that gives officer the legal justification in order to escalate the encounter, and it gives the prosecutor more ammunition against you in the courtroom. Stay calm, be respectful, comply with lawful orders, including stepping out of your vehicle if you're asked to. The United States Supreme Court ruled in Pennsylvania versus Mims that officers can order you out of the car during any lawful traffic stop. But here's the critical distinction that people don't know. Compliance is not the same as consent. You can follow every instruction while still clearly stating, "I do not consent to a search. I am not choosing to answer questions." Following directions and giving up your rights are 2 completely different things, and that distinction matters. Think of it this way. You can step out of the car when ordered to do so by law enforcement, but you can still refuse to consent to the search of that car. You can put your hands behind your back if instructed to by law enforcement, but still decline to answer their questions. Obedience to lawful commands protects your safety. Silence protects your freedom. Florida is a two-party consent state for private conversations, but interactions with police officers performing their official duties are not private, especially when they occur on the roadways. You have the legal right to record your traffic stop in Florida. Turn on your phone's video camera or make sure your dash cam is running and let it capture everything. Now, don't wave your phone in the officer's face or announce it aggressively. Just set it somewhere visible where it's out of the way and let it record what's happening. The traffic stop turns into an arrest if something goes wrong. If the officer's written report doesn't match what actually happened on the road, your recording becomes the single most important piece of evidence in your defense. I've seen cases completely change because the officer described the stop one way, but we had a video that showed a completely different story. That gap between what the officer wrote and what actually happened, that's where cases can get won. Even when the footage supports the officer's account, sometimes having your own recording gives your attorney a second angle of the encounter, one that captures details that the dash cam or the body camera missed, like what happened in the first moments when that officer arrived at your window. Now, if the reason you were pulled over had anything to do with alcohol, the officer at that stops are going to ask you very specific tactics designed to get you to incriminate yourself. We break down those DUI specific tricks in another video that goes much deeper into what really happens when police suspect you've been drinking and driving. If you want to see what happens when a traffic stop involves alcohol, watch our video on the tricks cops use during DUI stops next. That one pairs directly with everything we've covered today. If something already happened during a stop and you're not sure whether your rights were respected, Lawson and Simmons handles criminal defense cases across Broward County, Palm Beach County, and Miami-Dade County. Our number is in the description.